Hi, my name is Brenda McGee, and this is Paranormal Encounters. I have a special guest here today. His name is Derek Picard, and he is a paranormal investigator. Welcome, Derek.
Hey, Brenda, thank you.
I'm glad you were here with me today. So, what got you into the paranormal? Was there an experience or something like that you want to talk about?
I had quite a few growing up as a kid, but I would say the biggest one was I was around 17 or 18 years old, and it happened when, of course, I was living with Mom and Dad. I was sitting in my bedroom one day and eating a pizza, watching TV with my cat. And it's kind of funny because my cat, out of the blue, just started to freak out over nothing. There was nothing around. You couldn't see anything, couldn't feel anything. The cat was hissing and clawing up at the air. And then the cat turned around and ran away. I didn't know what to think of it. At that point, it was getting late. I closed the door, went to sleep. As I'm starting to go to sleep, you could feel things changing in the room, which was quite scary at that age. I didn't know what to expect.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, you start to see smoke coming in from underneath the doorway. And where I lived in this apartment in Fall River, there was a back entry. And at first I thought, okay, maybe their entry's on fire and there's smoke coming in. Felt the door wasn't warm, but the room started to fill with smoke. And I didn't understand why. There was nothing else anywhere. I kind of did the typical thing you see and kids do. Jump in bed and cover up, right? That's all you can do. At that point, I actually saw a ghost come into the room. And it was the typical old-style scary witch. Oh. And I was literally frozen with fear. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. And what felt like an eternity finally turned into, maybe a minute, and I was able to scream, and Mom came running into the room, and there's absolutely nothing there. And at that moment, I said, okay, what is this? There is something more out here to life, and I didn't know what it was.
Jeez. You must have been terrified.
It was horrible. I didn't want to go to sleep anymore.
Now, was that the only time you experienced that at that age?
At that level.
At that level?
Yeah. Being younger, maybe 6, 7, I would think I saw things, and I was always told, no, you're not seeing anything, there's nothing there.
Right.
So.
Now, us being on the, paranormal team together, can you tell me what was the best investigation that you ever went on or that you, got excited about?
Had a lot of them. We had a lot of them.
Please share with us.
I think one of the best ones was probably when we all went together to the Houghton Mansion for our overnight trip. That was quite the place, quite an experience.
That was an amazing place. Is there any other experiences or any stories you want to tell to everybody?
Well, we had one similar to the Annabelle movie at one point, which we were not personally involved in. It was more of a distance type of thing.
Yeah.
I received a frantic phone call from a friend who was telling me that things are going wrong in the house. His wife was pushed down the staircase. She had a handprint on her. Pictures are falling off of the walls. Weird things were happening that they could not explain. And in my conversations, we had asked him, what's changed? Have you gone anywhere? Did you go on any type of what they call a ghost hunt or anything like that? But the only thing that had changed is a relative had gone on vacation and brought them back a doll that they picked up on an island. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Hawaii, I can't remember where it was, but it was a doll that they picked up in an antique store. And since that came into the house is when things started to change. And we gave him very specific instructions on how to wrap the item, how to bind it, to bury it off of his property, to do certain prayer rituals and things of that nature. It was the middle of winter when this had happened, and he did do it. When he actually got the object into his car, immediately his car would not start. Never had a problem with his car before.
Right.
Take the object out, the car would start. Put the object back in, the car wouldn't start. Got the car started eventually, started driving, almost had 2 accidents on the way, drove to the woods, and started to bury the object. And what he described to me as he was burying the object, he said, Derek, I can't believe it. It's just like you see in the movies. Everything changed. Everything got silent. Everything was still. You could feel there was no more breeze blowing. The birds weren't chirping. The trees weren't moving. There was nothing. It was almost as if it was foggy and like everything was blurred to him. And after he buried this doll and went back home, things had stopped. He never had an issue again.
So is there another story that you want to tell us or experience that you had?
Let's go back to the Houghton Mansion.
Okay.
We had a pretty good time there.
We had that whole place to ourselves.
And we investigated an area that nobody had ever thought of investigating, the kitchen.
That's right. That's right.
And we encountered a female that was there. I cannot remember her name, but in our investigation, she did tell us that she had worked there as a servant in the kitchen. And she was getting very scared, and all of a sudden our instruments would no longer work. And that's when Mr. Houghton himself would be coming around.
Right.
When Mr. Houghton would leave, he would come back. And even the people who run that location were amazed because they had never experienced that either.
One of the investigators actually had to leave the actual building for a few minutes because they had gone up the stairs thinking that that's where we were, and they heard voices, and
there was nobody
there.
there.
Was nobody there.
There was nobody there. They went looking for us and they weren't there.
So there is a time when, we do get unnerved from
It does. It
these
happens.
investigations, but we do love it.
We had run a fundraiser at one of the lighthouses in locally Fall River area, and we had actually sold tickets for that event. It was to help the lighthouse, and it was also to help us get some money at one point for some equipment. And during that investigation, we were using the spirit box. One of our guests who had purchased a ticket had no idea what they were really in for. They went in thinking, okay, I can handle this, this is okay. But when her name was being called out through the spirit box, that's when she started to get very unnerved, to the point where she had to leave and take a boat back from the lighthouse back to land. She couldn't stay any longer.
So is there any other, how about, have people ever come to you just knowing that you would know something or experience something? Because I feel that some people will come up and say, I'm having these issues, and they don't even know anything about you or whatever, and it just seems like it's so normal now that there's so many people that are experiencing things, and they're finally coming out and saying, this could be paranormal.
It does happen. It does happen. Friends of mine that I don't know that I do this at all, they will start having random conversations, and it's funny how it just works. They just come to you, and exactly like you say, they start talking about these problems, and you can actually help them by doing a little bit of investigative work. Tell them how to handle it.
And it's all word of mouth. We don't advertise, but yet word of mouth from one case to another case to another case, it's like they know how to reach us.
Right.
So to me, that
They're
it's like
being
divine
brought.
intervention, I call
Right,
it.
divine intervention. They're being
Because they're
brought
supposed
to us.
Now, has anyone in your family ever experienced anything, or has it only been you that has experienced?
Actually, it's been in my family for years. When I was an infant, I remember my grandmother telling me the story that one of the houses we lived in, a young lady who lived on the third floor had committed suicide. And as an infant being there in the house, when my grandmother was there watching me, there would be chalk marks that were drawn on the stairs. And Grandma would go down and clean the stairs, and chalk marks would go this way. After she cleaned the stairs, all of a sudden now there's fresh chalk marks that go this way. And she could never figure out how or why. But people have seen things, they've heard things. It's always been there, but it's been so quiet and people were afraid to talk about it. But now it's out in the open. Thanks to different TV shows that have brought that up, the internet, people being open and communicating. It's coming out into the light now, and people can help each other with it.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, was so that people know you don't have to move out of your home if there is a haunting.
Right.
That we can come in and, we can help you with the situation, and you don't have to move, you don't have to run out of there. But people watch some of the shows on TV, and they say you have to get all these different peoples of all this, and honestly, you really don't. So
Don't be afraid of the dead people, be more afraid of the live people.
it's funny because people ask me, do you want to stay in a haunted location? Absolutely not. I don't want to stay in I'll investigate it and I'll go overnight, but Just like at the Houghton Mansion, I wouldn't sleep there. I stayed up the whole night while you guys fell asleep.
I had no problem sleeping.
I know, but I just don't like that. I mean, I think Philadelphia is one of the most haunted places that I've ever been at. I mean, they've got an asylum there that you can actually go investigate and stuff like that. But what I try to tell people also with the classes and stuff is it's not a game. It's not a joke. You can't just one day wake up and say, I want to be a paranormal investigator. You have to do it the correct way because there can be repercussions.
That's when people get hurt.
That's when people get hurt. That's when people call us and say, please help us. We need help. And the first thing we ask them is, where were you last? Did you buy any antiques or anything? What did you bring into the home?
Have you been playing with a Ouija board?
Have you been playing with a Ouija board?
Have you gone out looking for it?
Which was my next thing was, how many cases have we had because somebody used a Ouija board?
Quite a few. Quite a few.
And it's a game that you buy at the store.
It's a movie that they
It's
just
a movie.
released recently.
And of course it happened, right around Halloween when it opened? I love horror movies. I'm a horror buff and things like that, but sometimes people get ideas and they have no clue what they're getting into. But, that's just how the world runs, right? So is your daughter, I know you have a daughter, does she show any interest with this, or does it kind of creep her out?
Kind of creeps her out. She's still young, though.
Yeah,
There's
she's
hope.
still young. I try to get other family members. I tried to get my daughter into it, but she's sensitive to energy and things like that, and she saw things that scared her, so she decided no. And then she watched a couple of movies and decided that this is not for me. Because like we said, it's not a joke. We take it very seriously when we go out there, and but we do have fun.
You can have fun as long as we do it in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
And
Now,
a lot of people don't do that.
is there a place where you had like a lot of where you felt like a lot of activity? You know what I mean? Like there's places that we go and you might not experience anything, and then later on when you go over the evidence, you see, the activity was happening. Just
That happens all the time.
Yes.
That happens all the time. We can have our EVPs going and asking questions, and you don't hear anything, you don't feel anything. But later on, as you're reviewing our evidence, we come up with things that are unbelievable. As a matter of fact, we did one investigation together where we walked into a very well-known place that we cannot name in Bristol.
Right.
And as we walked in, the staircase that was in front of us, we both saw a full apparition of a woman in white. She was wearing a white dress. We both sat and looked at each other and said, did you just at the same time?
Yeah, that was
And
great.
we did. And later on in the night, as we were doing some recordings, asking our questions with our recorders, we asked, are you the woman in white? We didn't feel anything or hear anything at that time. But when we reviewed our evidence, what we heard back was a direct response to our question. Were you the woman in white? No, it was red.
Have you ever seen anything that you were like, oh my goodness, this is crazy?
As a matter of fact, of course I have. Literally saw the whole upper torso of a man. It was invisible, just like you see on TV. You can see the head, the shoulders, the arms, the torso. You can see it walking right towards me. And I have to tell you, I wasn't ready for it. It scared the heebie-jeebies out of me.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do at that point.
Yeah.
Real.
Well, Derek, time is running out. I thank you so much for being here. And I just want to thank everybody for watching the show today. My name is Brenda McGee, and if you have any questions or want to reach us, you can email us at paranormalencounterstv9@gmail.com. And thank you.